Fear makes you focus on the negative potential outcomes. Fear makes you focus on why something good can't happen. Champions focus on why something good can happen. What you choose to focus on tends to become your reality. If you focus on all the past examples of failures, you'll be drawn to living out negative outcomes. If you focus on past examples of success, people who bounce back from adversity, you'll be drawn to living out positive outcomes. You get to choose what you focus on, and the choice you make determines your future. Hold up a second, I said. I'm not some dour pessimist. You've taught me the power of optimism. I try to look at the bright side of most things, but you have to admit, some failures are permanent. Sometimes you get injured and you never get better. I cringed after the last sentence left my mouth, remembering that I was talking to a man who suffered a career-ending car wreck just 1 week after becoming a world champion. Sorry, I didn't mean it that way, I said awkwardly. Andre smiled. Don't apologize. You're bringing up a great point. One that I've had a lot of time to think about over the years. You're right. When the car wreck happened, it ended my boxing career. The best surgeons I could find tried to put my hip and shoulder back together so that way I could fight again, but it didn't happen. At the time, boxing was everything to me. I mean, everything. It was all I ever wanted to do and all I could ever see myself doing. When it was finally clear that my career was over and there would be no comeback, I had two options. I could wallow in self-pity, do the whole why me thing, and accept that my best days were behind me. That's what fear wanted me to do. Or I could choose to believe that what was happening for a reason. That the end of my boxing career was setting me up for a better future than I had planned. I could choose to believe that my best days were ahead of me and not behind me. That's what faith wanted me to do. And you chose faith, I said. Wrong. For about a year, I wallowed in self-pity. I was miserable to be around. I was jealous of everyone, and I complained about how unfair life was. Anytime somebody suggested a new career path, I made an excuse for why I wasn't meant to be anything other than a pro boxer. I believe life handed me defeat. A permanent defeat that robbed me of my destiny. Eventually, though, I got tired of listening to fear. I realized that if I had started with nothing and became champion of the world of boxing, I could do the same thing in other areas of life. I realized I had a choice. Everything is a choice. I could choose to keep feeding the voice of fear, which said I was a permanent failure, or I could start feeding the voice of faith, which said this setback was a setup for something bigger and better. If you choose to believe that an obstacle is actually an opportunity for something better, an amazing thing happens. You start seeing obstacles differently. Whenever you experience a setback, you immediately start searching for the opportunity that will come from it. You create new opportunities by choosing to believe that every obstacle is an opportunity. That is a snippet from Victory Favors the Fearless: How to Defeat the 7 Fears That Hold You Back by Darren Donnelly. The obstacle is the way. Last week, or this past weekend, I was having a conversation with my daughter, and somehow the word adversity came up. And we started talking, and I was basically like, most people have never been faced with any kind of adversity. And because of that, when things get tough, they give up. And she didn't know what adversity was. I had to explain it to her. People don't know how to overcome these adversities. And then my wife and I started talking, and, if you're new to this channel, and maybe you don't know who I am, or maybe you've been following my stuff for a while, October 31st, 2018, I stepped forward to become a living liver donor. I don't talk about it much. And anytime I do mention it, I always mention how I don't talk about it much. It's just not something I try to seek recognition for. But basically, I donated 70% of my liver to save someone's life. And I don't think I deserve recognition for that, for doing the right thing, for being a good human being. Because Christ said the ultimate way to love someone is to lay your life down for that person. The ultimate way to love your neighbor is to be willing to die for that person. And I'm not sharing that to look at me. What I want to share today is hopefully maybe give you something that will help you today. Maybe I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're struggling with in life. I don't know what obstacles you're encountering. But, I was talking to my wife and I said, as I look back and I'm just reflecting, because that whole situation, everything went by so fast. It was 3 plus months of recovery. And one of the first questions I got was from a close friend of mine. His name's Brian Bolke. Shout out to you, Brian. He lives in San Antonio. And one of my close friends, one of my mentors. And he came to visit me in the hospital, and it was the day after. And one of the things that he asked me, and he was actually just kind of speaking out loud, but one of the things that he asked me was, he was like, dude, I don't know how you did that. How did you do that? I've got children, I've got a career, I've got a family to look after, and so do you. You've got kids, you've got a wife. What would have happened if you didn't make it through this surgery? Which was one of the possibilities, a very small possibility, but it was a possibility that I didn't make it through surgery. He's like, how did you do that? Why did you do that? I never had a good answer for why I did what I did. And as time went on, I'll share that part of the story with you maybe another day. But, I think one of the reasons why I did it, it was an obstacle that I wanted to see if I could overcome it. I have a little bit of a sick, twisted mindset when it comes to doing hard things. You can ask my wife. She freaks out about the way I approach things in life. Anytime I'm going to take something on, anytime I set out for, I have a goal, or I see something that I desire, that I want to accomplish, in my mind tells me, what is the hardest possible way to get this done? What's the most difficult way? I always want to do that way. I don't know what it is. That's something God put inside of me. But anything I'm going to do, I want to do, what's the most advanced way to do it? Maybe that's not a good thing. But again, it's a challenge I see for myself. And so when it came to something like this, I'm like, man, what is a more difficult obstacle? What's a more difficult journey to overcome, to take and to overcome, than to donate 70% of my liver? And I remember thinking, if I can do this, if I can donate 70% of my liver, and if I can overcome that, if I can overcome the recovery and the mindset of, because man, I went down a pretty dark path when I was recovering, and I just saw this huge surgical wound from my sternum down below my belly button. I was like, if I can overcome that mentally, physically, emotionally, there's nothing that I can't overcome. There is no business I cannot build. There is no deadlift that I cannot lift. There is no snatch test. There is no eating plan. Those are like straw in comparison. And that's one of the reasons why I did it. I was like, this is probably going to be the most difficult thing mentally, physically, emotionally that I can do. And if I can overcome that, obstacle, there's nothing that I cannot overcome. I believe it was, Ryan Holiday. He wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way. And that's so true. The obstacle is the way. You want to be a better man, a better husband. You want to get better at jiu-jitsu. You want to get better at X, Y, or Z goal that you're setting out to be. Embrace the challenge. Embrace the obstacle, because the obstacle is the way. Christ said in the Bible, the way is hard that leads to salvation. The wide path leads to destruction. It's the hard things in life that are going to provide the most fulfillment and the greatest result. And we see this. We see this in Ezekiel. I was going through the readings the other day, and I came across this, and it just is what inspired today's video. We see this in Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 1 through 7, where God is speaking through Ezekiel, and he says, "And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, make known to Jerusalem her abominations. And thou shalt say, Thus saith the Lord God to Jerusalem, Thy root and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother a Sethite. And when thou was born, in the day of thy nativity, thy navel was not cut, neither was thou washed with water for thy health, nor salted with salt, nor swaddled with clouts. No eye had pity on thee to do any of these things for thee, out of compassion for thee. But thou was cast out upon the face of the earth in the abjection of the soul, in the day that thou was born. And passing by thee, I saw that thou was trodden underfoot in thy own blood. And I said to thee, when thou was in thy blood, live. I said to thee, live in thy blood. I caused thee to multiply as the bud of the field, and thou didst increase and grow great and advance. That's Ezekiel 16, 1 through 7. So basically it's like, look, when I saw you, like, no one took care of you. No one cared for you. No one loved you. You had the hard life. No one took pity on you. No one had compassion upon you. And when I saw you, when I passed by you and I saw you, I told you, live in your blood. So it's kind of like, God's like, you know what? Live in that trial. And as a result of that, I will multiply you like the bud in the field, and you will grow great in greatness, and you will advance. So it's like God is calling us to live in our struggles. He's calling us to embrace our cross. God does not promise us a life of wealth. He does not promise us anything other than we are actually promised a cross. So he's calling us to embrace our suffering, essentially, because we will suffer to an extent in this lifetime. So don't seek the easy path. God is calling us to embrace our wound. And as a consequence, we will grow like the plants of the field. We can't avoid suffering. We can't avoid the hard work when it comes to our strength training, when it comes to our eating. We're called to embrace that journey, to embrace the struggle. Because on the other side of struggle and suffering is growth. Just like the Jews in the desert, God, when God, he had Moses put up the brass serpent, right? And he told them that anybody that looks upon that will be healed. Like, God didn't remove the vipers. He didn't remove the snakes. He didn't remove the suffering, because we need that suffering in our lives. God will not remove the suffering from our lives because he knows that we need it to grow into the men and women that we've been called to be. Like, without resistance, without challenge, without the obstacle, there is no growth. Think about from your strength training perspective, without the repetitions, without the resistance, you can't grow stronger. God encourages us to rely on him for strength mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This is what we call the fear of the Lord. Acknowledging God has power over us. We saw that in Amos, where the Jews refused to acknowledge God out of their ignorance. He told them, I did all these things to you, and you did not turn to me. He said this, I want to say he said it like 7 times. They did not turn to him in the midst of their suffering. And it's very easy for us to become full of ourselves, to be captivated by our own success, to be captivated by our own glory in this lifetime. And as a consequence, we forget about God. We deny our religion because we believe that we can do this whole thing on our own. We have forgotten the God of Isaac, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who made everything possible for us in this lifetime. So, friend, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever challenge it is that you're experiencing, take that journey, embrace that challenge, embrace that hard training program, embrace that whatever challenge you're experiencing at work, embrace those things, because the obstacle is the way. That's it, man. That's all I got. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.